In today's video, Darren Till calls out Nate Diaz for a boxing match. The date for Conor McGregor vs Michael Chandler finally gets revealed. Jake Paul advocates for higher fighter pay, and UFC fighters reach out to Ariel Helwani about joining a $1 billion class action lawsuit. Ariel Helwani has recently brought to light an intriguing development within the UFC. It appears that several prominent UFC fighters have expressed their interest in participating in an ongoing class action lawsuit against the promotion, a legal endeavor valuated at an astonishing $1 billion. During an episode of the MMA Hour, Helwani delved into the subject of the decade-long class action lawsuit by saying this: more than 1,200 fighters who competed in live professional UFC-promoted mixed martial arts bouts in the US between December 2010 and June 2017. Couple of fighters reached out to me and said, "How can I join this?" And if you have fought in that time period, you're just a part of it automatically. So there's nothing to like to sign up or join from what the lawsuit's all about. It looks like every fighter who fought within that time period isn't exempted from joining this lawsuit. Ariel Helwani then credited Eric Magrican for his coverage on the matter and even included his video describing the lawsuit and the promotion's methods in signing fighters to long-term contracts to retain control. Here's a clip.
A couple fighters reached out to me and said, "How can I join this?" And if you have fought in that time period, you're just a part of it automatically. So there's nothing to sign up or join.
What is this lawsuit about? Back in December 2014, a group of MMA fighters, some still active, joined together to file a class action lawsuit against the UFC and its parent company Zuffa LLC. These representatives believe that the UFC used improper strategies to control the market for MMA fighter services. In essence, they're alleging the UFC paid them a lot less than they should have, and that the UFC has formed a monopsony on the professional MMA market, which hurts all MMA fighters as a result. After fighting in court for more than 6 years, the court said it's planning to officially recognize this group as a class of fighters and shared its written opinion about it. If the class is officially recognized, the fighters leading the lawsuit and their lawyers will represent the whole group of 1,200 fighters. This excludes fighters who are not residents or citizens of the US unless the UFC paid them to compete in the US. So what does this mean for the UFC? Well, this means that all the 1,200 or so fighters who fit the class description are automatically part of the lawsuit. They can choose to opt out, but if they stay in, their claims will be included in the case. If the lawsuit is successful, they could get a share of the money that's being argued to be between $800 million and $1.60 billion, which is quite a lot. If successful, this lawsuit could change the landscape of professional MMA, which is likely beneficial to fight fans, just not the UFC. So what do you think about this lawsuit? Let us know in the comments section below. Jake's been throwing shade at Dana for a while, saying that UFC fighters aren't getting a fair deal. But hold up, recently, he dropped some real talk on Mike Tyson's hotboxing show, and it's not just about beef anymore. Jake's saying it's not personal hate he's got for Dana, but a legit worry about the fighters' well-being. I mean, we're talking billions here, and fighters are pocketing just a measly 15% of that massive stack. It's like, come on man. He's pushing for something big though. Jake's throwing down the gauntlet, saying the UFC needs to bump up the base pay to a solid $50,000. And you know what? He's got a really solid point. Think about it, that kind of cash could seriously change the game for those up-and-coming fighters who ain't hitting the headlines yet. In his words, he said, the fighter minimum in the UFC is $12,500. It should be at least $50,000. If they made it $50,000, that would change the smaller fighters' lives in a big, big way. They wouldn't have to work other jobs, they could afford gym fees, and they could afford the proper food. Right now, they're working other jobs barely scraping by, and if they changed the fighter minimum to $50,000 per fight, it would only cost the UFC $20 million per year. But that $20 million would be going into the smaller fighters' pockets, and it's the world of a difference. In response to what Paul said, Mike Tyson gave a different point of view. He used an example related to the typical urban lifestyle to explain his idea. He talked about the complicated business aspects that have been around for a long time. Although many pundits of the sport have called out Dana White and the UFC for robbing fighters of good pay, the organization hasn't given any concrete response as to why the pay is so small compared to that of other MMA promotions. Not many MMA fans would have possibly imagined a showdown between Darren Till and Nate Diaz, but in a surprising turn of events, Darren Till has called out the Nate for a boxing match on social media. "I would like to box one of the OGs of the fight game, Nate Diaz," wrote Darren Till. However, this didn't sit well with the fans. One fan said, "Darren, please, wake up to reality." Another Twitter user stated that Till would have to settle for Mike Perry as an opponent in a bare-knuckle boxing match. before even dreaming of fighting Nate. But to top it all up, this fan said, "You used to say you would be a two-weight champion and the GOAT of MMA, now all you do is beg YouTubers and old washed-up fighters for boxing matches who don't even know who you are." I mean, that's a lot to take in, but this isn't actually the first time Darren Till is calling out one of the Diaz brothers. When a fight between Nate Diaz and Till's friend and teammate, Khamzat Chimaev, was set up in 2022 for UFC 279, Till expressed interest in fighting Nick Diaz on the same card. However, a boxing match between Diaz and Till could happen because both fighters are not in the UFC anymore. Diaz, who is from Stockton, tried boxing for the first time and fought Jake Paul on August 5th. And although he didn't win, a lot of people still respect him in the world of mixed martial arts. Till hasn't been doing well recently in MMA, amassing 5 losses in his last 6 fights. This makes him a poor marketable fighter and also makes it a lot harder for a fight between himself and Nate Diaz to ever happen. It appears that Conor McGregor's potential comeback in the UFC is finally materializing. The Irish fighter had been sidelined after experiencing consecutive losses to Dustin Poirier in 2021. At a certain juncture, the leg injury sustained during the Poirier match seemed like it might put an end to his career. However, McGregor showed great determination and made a complete recovery. His sights are now set on returning to the ring against Michael Chandler in December 2023. The question now is which event will host this highly anticipated bout. During season 31 of the Ultimate Fighter reality show, Conor McGregor took on the role of a coach, pitted against former Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler. The show typically becomes a fertile ground for brewing and intensifying rivalries between head coaches. This naturally generates substantial excitement surrounding their eventual showdown following the conclusion of the season. Concurrently, during Tough 31, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler seemed to be on a collision course. However, Chandler was disappointed as McGregor seemed to be considering other avenues, as evident from his social media posts and statements. Furthermore, McGregor's situation concerning the regulations of the United States Anti-Doping Agency, also known as USADA, seemed to be pushing his return to 2024. But in a recent turn of events, the former two-division UFC champion disclosed that he's scheduled to face Michael Chandler at UFC 296 in December 2023. Nevertheless, it remains uncertain whether the 35-year-old will be granted permission to compete without complying with the requirement of enrolling in the testing pool 6 months in advance. For Michael Chandler, his recent social media activity suggests that the fight between him and Conor McGregor is already in the works and might be announced soon. McGregor is the biggest pay-per-view star and the most famous mixed martial artist in the sport's history. If he indeed returns in 2023, his comeback fight will likely headline the UFC 296 pay-per-view event that will take place on December 16, 2023, in Las Vegas, Nevada. UFC 296 is the final pay-per-view event of the year and does not have a main event fight announced yet. As a result, McGregor vs. Chandler will bring a perfect ending to a successful year from a commercial point of view. So do you think this fight will happen? Let us know in the comments section below. Make sure you check out these other videos shown on your screen right now. Thanks for watching, and we'd see you next time.